Welcome back, everybody, to the ND and Free podcast in partnership with the Awareness Space, a podcast and media platform that explores how NDers can live their truth and feel free in their lives. We hear from inspiring coaches, therapists, experts, and fellow NDers from all over the world. I'm Owen Morgan, a self-awareness coach and ADHD coach. I have over 10 years experience in the wellbeing sector and have interviewed over 500 people across 4 podcasts. I received my ADHD diagnosis at 41 and it changed my life forever. My mission is to explore how the human spirit and understanding our whole self can bring us a life full of possibilities. Okay, guys, on today's Neurodivergent Thrive Guide show, for the very first time, I have done this over the years, but the very first time on ND and Free, we have 2 guests on one show. I love holding this space. It's going to be epic. We have Charlotte Green and Elise Renzetti. Charlotte is a career development coach, ADHD coach, and UCA accredited coaching supervisor. Charlotte runs her business, Charlotte Specific Coaching and Supervision. Elise is the founder of To The Core Coaching. She is a neurodiverse truth teller and alignment activator who sparks professionals to ignite their magic and own their power. So much intro. Welcome to show first, Charlotte. I first met you when I was doing my ADHD coaching, and it was so lovely to have you in the room holding the space for us all. How are you doing? And have you done podcasting before?
Have I done podcasting before? I think I've probably done a couple many years ago, before, I was equipped with backdrops and things like this. Yeah.
Yeah, right at the beginning of it all. Just seems like everyone has one now.
Yeah, and everyone noticed your laptop was
But
sideways.
yeah, like I said, when I was in my training, that's how I met you. That's how we know each other. And it was such an amazing
Yeah,
experience. And to be a qualified coach now, sat in front of somebody who's part of that is very, very special. But yeah, I want to thank you for being here today. And I'm really looking forward to diving into our topics.
lovely. Thank you.
Thank you. And Elise, I've never met you before. I always know people way beforehand, lots of voice messages, building up a bond. So this is interesting, meeting someone for the first time. How are you feeling about diving into this today?
I'm really excited. I think that I clearly am American, so I love your accent, but I come here from America on the East Coast of the United States. And I usually get to know people really quick, Owen, so I don't think that this will be difficult at all. I think we'll be fast friends by the end of the time together.
Yes, no doubt. I've got loads of friends out of this journey so far. But yeah, I am trying to tap more into the American market. I've had a few people on the last few episodes, but normally it's the other way around. But for this particular ND stuff, it's been very different. So let's get some context. We are going to talk about being versus doing today, which I'm super excited about. We're going to look at it from the perspective of how we can teach clients and help clients through the process. And obviously, Charlotte, with your supervision, we'll be looking at how coaches can actually integrate and use these skills and tools to actually turn up in the right headspace, which is amazing. But give us some context just briefly. So Charlotte, just tell us what you're doing at the moment, what your business is all about, just so we can get a sense of your work.
Brilliant. So I am an ADHD coaching supervisor. So I work with aspiring coaches and newly qualified ADHD coaches in the group supervision space. So really love that because they can bring topics and challenges and successes into the room, and then we can sit comfortably listening, sharing amongst each other. And I absolutely love group supervision, as well as individual supervision for coaches, career coaches, and leaders.
Yeah, thanks so much. It's so important for the whole community. Supervision is so important, just so we can help ourselves as coaches best process everything that we're experiencing on this journey. So thank you to you and everybody that does it, because it's so important. And all therapists and coaches, you need to look into this, because if you're not doing it already, it's a must for sure. So Elise, give us more context for what you're doing there over in the States.
So I have a full-time role that I work with career mobility and development for going into organizations and helping to really equip professionals to be better people. That's really my passion. And then on the side with my To The Core coaching, I work with a variety of different leaders emerging leaders who are really wanting to dig into who they are, what they want, how they want to get there, and why it's important to them. Many of my clients are also neurodiverse, as am I. And I'm just really very passionate about helping professionals to lean into who they are as professionals, be better leaders, to lead themselves, as well as ultimately that just transitions over into being better humans as well.
Oh, I love that. Amazing. And I think opportunities and progression for neurodivergent people can be tricky at times. And I think any help is so valuable because there's so much we can offer. At the highest level, it's just knowing that we can get there with the tools that we need. So thank you so much for the work that you're doing. So my first question always is, which is silly because we're here for a reason. We all love helping the community. But Charlotte, why do you care about helping neurodivergent people? What at your core is why you care about that?
Well, I've always held close to my heart the challenges of my own family. So my daughters are neurodivergent, and my husband too. And it wasn't until I did my training for my coaching supervision that I realised that I was also ADHD and probably more autistic, I think, now in my recent learning. So that's the passion of it all, really. And as a career coach, I get to work with individuals that don't often want to talk about the fact that they are neurodivergent, or they think they are and they still don't think they should talk about it. And it's a topic that both me and Elise do, we collaborate on and talk about regularly. So it's just a passion that's close to my heart and forever learning more about.
I love that. I don't know about you, but I think it's very special that because there's so many neurodivergent people becoming coaches and therapists and helping fellow neurodivergent people, it feels slightly different to maybe traditional coaching in a way of there's already such a relatable connection there. It lends itself to a space of real healing, I guess, in many ways. Have you felt that kind of that sense within this sort of bubble where we can all help each other as having the same life experiences, I guess?
Yeah, particularly in the group supervision space, ADHD coaches are coming through, realizing that they're learning new techniques, new tools, which we might delve into a little bit in our conversation, no doubt. But just bringing them that sense of it's okay to bring their professional identities with them and all of their other learning and their careers to date, be it marketing or being a therapist or what have you. And the ADHD or neurodiversity training coaching on top of that really just helps them with that holistic approach and gives them permission, if you like, to find different approaches to meet the needs of their clients or colleagues, co-workers, etc.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. And it's such a special, I don't know. I've only been in the community for a year. It's so, so special. I've met so many amazing friends on this journey. So, Elise, why do you care about helping neurodivergent people?
Well, I have a little different story. I was diagnosed when I was 19. I actually went to get diagnosed so that it was in the early 90s, so that I could get my college paid for. Because at the time, ADHD was such a new thing that if you were diagnosed, you could get support not only for in your classroom experience, but also financially. So I was trying to go and get my school paid for. And I thought that I thought I was just going to blow it and just like fake it to be ADHD. I later got a brain scan, a SPECT scan at the Amen Clinic here in the United States, and was diagnosed deeply that I was ADHD. So I got the validation and the confirmation, even though I kind of already knew it. But I was 19 years old. I started research and studying and became very familiar with all of the things that go with ADHD, and stayed very hidden for a lot of years. And so now that it's starting to become more common, a more common conversation, I'm so comfortable with being ADHD that it becomes very natural inside the conversation. In fact, I had a conversation yesterday. I said, so do you happen to be neurodiverse? And he was like, I've never felt so not judged by being asked that question. And we continued the conversation. So again, I think that, like Charlotte said, it's a little uncomfortable to have these conversations. And so I'm very passionate about being able to create this space that is non-judgmental so that we can have more conversations and we don't have to stay hidden. And so I try to find various different ways of either bringing in data or information that I've learned over the 30 something years now of being neurodiverse myself, and just increasing passion now that it's become like, it's like we're all coming out of the closet as ADHDers. And I really am passionate about being able to share that.
Yeah, I love that. And something that really rings true there is this sense, this sort of self-judgment on that journey too. When you get late diagnosed, how long does it take to get to a point, even for myself, where when I say it out loud to somebody from any background, from any age group, whoever it is, I can say it and not have that little piece of me. It's like, oh, what do they think? Or there's some little bit of shame there. So it's quite interesting how, I don't know what that journey's like, how long it takes people, and maybe coaching helps us on that journey too. But feeling deeply seen by our community, that's one thing, and it feels absolutely incredible. But can we get to a place where we own it completely, no matter what environment we're in? That's for another podcast. That's not for today. That's good. That's a good thing to talk about, actually. But just briefly, because I really want to make sure we keep as many of our questions in as we can. But Charlotte, could you give me the moment that you discovered neurodivergent truth? What happened? Are you one of those people that had all the regrets from the past or embraced what they'd done considering they had ND? Where did you sit? Were you like, finally, I'm free? What was the moment?
Oddly enough, when I learned only in the last year and a half that I was dyslexic, it actually upset me quite a bit. It was like my identity. It was like it proved why I struggled at school and things like that. And I've actually done after school, gone on to do many qualifications, you know, and I know that I'm capable and competent. So I took my dyslexia to my supervision of supervision because I was worried it might impact my way of showing up when I was working with coaches as well. You know, and that's what I love about supervision. You bring your whole self to it, whether you're neurodiverse or not. But that was a real learning point. But then I learned that I've managed life all these years actually, and you know, managed to find many strategies to work, and no one ever noticed, and all that sort of stuff. So since then, I've really embraced it, and I see more positives about my neurodivergence, and that's that I know I might be fast paced or I'm an ideas person, and I talk about those strengths. But I learned that if you overuse those strengths, that's where you can have burnout and things like that. So they are really positive things. I might go off on a tangent now, another neurodivergent trait of mine, but you know, lots of people talk about masking being a hindrance, and actually, I think it's a skill. So masking for my daughter is a skill. She doesn't like to look people in the eyes, but in her job and as a bar, you know, working behind the bar, she has to build relationships and look at people in the eyes. So now she's developing her skill, and my skill is putting more effort into being extrovert and getting things done quickly. So I think that there is a lot of unnecessary negatives placed on some of the traits of neurodivergence. And actually, I think it's the skills and the strengths of using those that we should bring into our careers conversations.
I love that because quite often people have said that people have said to them, you don't work hard enough or you're lazy or whatever. It's like actually with the hardest working because we have to actually push to a certain extent or go that extra mile or really have to hone skills and really learn a different way to approach something. If anything, it's quite the opposite. They're the strongest and most hardest working people I know. So I just want to throw that out there because I think it's really, really important.
Yeah, super resilient.
Mhm. Yeah, certainly. Yes. So, Elise, how about yourself? Obviously, you were 19. You know, you're saying it's been a little while ago now, but can you remember that moment? Like you said, you felt like, oh, I already knew that. But was there any regret, shame, anything? Or you're like, yes, this is me.
In the very beginning, you're right. It was a really long time ago. I think that as I continued to research, and there wasn't nearly as much information as there is now. I think that the confirmation, and again, I'd been researching and learning kind of in the closet because I was really kind of the only one of any of my sphere of influence that had ADHD. But when I had that spec scan, then that confirmation, it's like, all right, I can sit in this, I can own it differently. Even though I knew that I had these characteristics and I'd been managing the characteristics, it really gave me permission. And that was probably about 15 years ago. That I had that scan. So I think that that was the moment that I owned it. And I said, this is my truth. This is who I am. This is how I'm wired. And this is where I'm going. And ever since then, I have started talking about it a lot more. I own the space. And even, you know, as I was really kind of, I meddled around in the corporate world prior to starting about 6 years ago and really deeply getting into the corporate world. That's when it really showed up. So I started having to adapt differently, learn differently, and own it differently, and also talk about it differently and say, hey, this is how I'm wired. This is how I work. This is what I do in order to be able to, like Charlotte said, I talk about your dyslexia. You've got to talk about it in order to be able to get the support that is needed. And also, you know, again, when you own it in coaching, I think that we may talk about this in the being and doing portion, but when you own who you are and you own how you're wired, you can show up differently and being able to be accepted in a little bit different way, not only accepting yourself, but be accepted by others.
Yeah, I love that. And I think you're right. It can show up. You can go 20 years and you have your diagnosis, but then you go into a new life experience. Like, oh my God. And that's what happened to my partner. She's going for an autism assessment now because we're realizing so much more of it's sensory than anything else. But she didn't know that when she was ADHD diagnosed. But life happened, and then these things emerge. And interesting, like you said about dyslexia, Charlotte, I did my graphic design, my first year of uni online. It killed me processing, writing the essays. I was okay with the designing. I was on my knees by the end of that year, and I thought, this can't be right. What is this? And then I was trying to do all of the notes and stuff for my ADHD coaching, sent it to Esther, and I was finding it really hard to write out what I was from the sessions and recalling information and all that. It destroyed me. And I said, Esther, can I do this in a different way? And she was amazing. We found a different way to do it. Audio, notes, met up for a one-to-one. So I didn't know about that. Now I'm like, am I dyslexic? And that's my journey going forward now, just to see the processing problems. So that's just a side, guys. That's a new part of my life that I need to go and look into that, because that degree showed me, and it showed something new for me to
But it
learn.
also just, we might have try not to go off track, but it almost shows about the accessibility of it. You know, and if we are doing training and courses and things like that, how accessible is it? I've had a really positive experience recently through the UCA, the Universal Coaching Alliance accreditation process, is that they've made it accessible in that you can choose to answer multiple of questions, either written, verbal, or recording. And it was just such a good experience, because where I needed to check my notebooks, I would do writing. And then where I was talking from the heart about my own experience and my life, I recorded myself. And it landed so well with them, but it was a great experience for me. And it's a shame that there isn't that flexibility in other kind of learning platforms like what you've just talked about. It's all about the writing, the written.
So true. Yeah. And that's why big shout out to everything Esther's doing. It's incredible. And it was all ready to go. I could find a different way of doing it. She was brilliant. So big shout out. And also with the Open College of Arts in the UK, they were fantastic. I've been diagnosed ADHD halfway through. I find it very hard to tell you what I'm doing in each phase of my design, which is what they want you to do, is to tell them the journey. I said, I'm just finding it impossible. Can I be reflective, but do audio notes for myself as I go through? And I said, yeah, just do it as a reflective sort of memory piece rather than step by step. They were brilliant.
Yeah.
Very
I'm
accessible.
very different to you. I can visualize the steps and the structure, where me and Elise, we recognize how different we are. So yeah, we all bring something different, a different skill, challenge.
Definitely more like you, Owen, for sure.
Yeah, it's just making it's just so important. I mean, it's 2025. I mean, all of these companies and organizations should be having stuff in place, but sadly, that is not the case. That is a different show. Right. Let's stick to the point here. Right, let's dive into our topic. I'm really excited for this. So we're talking about being versus doing. So like I said, we're looking at it from the perspective of how we can help people integrate that skill, and also how coaches can live by example, essentially. But let's start with what we feel about this. So we'll start with you, Elise, because I feel like I've accidentally gone to the top of my screen downwards every time. So we'll start with you. What, as far as being versus doing, what does that mean to you? What does that look like from a personal view?
I'll go back to what I was saying a second ago about really owning who you are and being able to sit in that. And I think what you said, Owen, about how you were able to find a different way to be, right? So you had to do something, but you had to own who you were being in the space of who you are and how you're operating to then go and do the thing. So being, to me, is really being able to like be in the flow, be who you are, and own your human being, so that then you can go and do the thing with more ease, more flow, more understanding of who you are and how you're operating in the world.
Yeah, I really like that. And I think, you know, with the being aspect of it, I just find that when I'm in a situation, quite often, like many of us do, will be scripting, or I wonder what they're thinking, and you're in a conversation like that, and it's exhausting. And it's a skill you need to learn over time, is just to have faith that you know what you're going to say next. I think the podcast has taught me that after 10 years. I try not to prep at all. If people send me the answers, I don't want to see them. because then I'm going to be like, she's about to say this. So I think I'm going to say this. And it feels so inauthentic. And I think my authenticity flows from just having faith that I know what I'm going to say. And that's the thing about coaching going into it. Am I actually going to be any good at this? Because my brain's telling me that I'm not going to have the answers. Classic. But that's something we work on. And speaking of that, Charlotte, as you know, I think we actually talked about this when we were doing stuff on the course. But what is your interpretation of being versus doing comparison? Or exactly the
So if I'm bringing it into the neurodivergent space with a coaching lens as a coach or coach supervisor, for me, it's a feeling of being where if I'm in a supervision, a group supervision, I have a different energy. It's almost like I'm sat in canter on a horse, where grip to the seat. It's a feeling of sitting, very open in the listening space. Where in a coaching experience, sometimes you're not, because sometimes you're listening to the information to actually think about the answer, a question that you might ask them next. I'm going to come to something else in a minute because I think we're going to dive into that. But for me, just to answer that question, it's really about the energy in that session, whether it's supervision or coaching. Am I being right now, sitting, or am I doing, i.e., something else, whatever that might be, thinking or doing something physical?
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it, that one? Because I actually literally just found out this week I've qualified in my teaching of presence, which is Eckhart Tolle's 6 month program about essentially a lot of it's mindfulness, but it's being a teacher of presence. And so much of what he was talking about is just being able to be there in that space, in that energy, and not being hooked by thoughts, being pushed around by thoughts, and just listening deeply and knowing that what you need to say may come, or maybe you don't need to say anything, which I thought was quite powerful. You don't have to respond to everything they're saying. You don't have to validate every single word that's being said. They actually just need you to hear them and then provide a space of guidance, which actually is just coming from your presence. And I thought that was really, really powerful over me having, I could have all my exercises around the outside. This exercise is good if they said this or this. You go into it thinking, oh, I could use that and that. That's quite often not what it's about, because it's so nuanced that you might need to blend a bit of this exercise with this exercise. And it's just having faith again that you that you can hold that space. And I think that's probably the biggest hurdle for people to believe in themselves enough, isn't it?
Yeah.
So important. So let's sort of fleet around these questions, because I think that's what's going to happen here. So we've got how does doing impact our life as NDers if we don't resource ourselves? So often we're seeing the rates of burnout are just absolutely heartbreaking in the ND community. And how can we have more flexible flow and be able to kind of just have faith that, say we're wanting to come up with a new idea for a business, that if we just sit there in front of our computer and we're like, okay, this is what it looks like. Actually, if you just have a day off, go for a walk, go to the beach, you'll probably find that all the ideas will start flowing in from your brain. You're like, oh my God. Then you come home and it's just so easy to just flow out onto the paper. So yeah, what are your thoughts there, Elise, on this sense of allowing the present moment and being present in that time to allow us to discover our truth rather than trying to force it through, if that makes sense?
Oh, it makes perfect sense. I think that's what I was saying about when we are striving and churning and having to force something that might not be working for us or whatever, that puts us in that churn and that doing space. Whereas if we just allow it to happen and we sit in the presence and I see us, especially as coaches, as intuitive channels. And when we can show up with our hands open and our body as a channel to just be able to receive and to listen deeply, then that enables that flow state of being. Again, like Charlotte and you both are saying, it allows that space of being. So I think that it is helping from a coaching lens, and in particular with the neurodiverse, because like you said, we're the hardest working people in the room. It's to help unlearn all these behaviors that have provided this mindset of churning and doing and striving and pressing and pushing, to unlearn those things so that we really can just show up and be a channel and trust ourselves and be in our own body, be in the truth of who we really are, and own everything that we have so that we really can do that. And I think it requires a lot of unlearning in order to be able to sit in that space.
I love that, because so often it's about learning new skills, but new habits, but like you said, the pre-existing ones that are probably either helpful or used to be helpful, but are no longer serving us. And how can we kind of unwire? We're trying to rewire, have new wiring, and unwire all at the same time. So, Charlotte, from the perspective of all the coaches that you worked with, have you seen patterns of coaches not being able to let go of wanting to have all the answers and to help fix their clients and to tell them what to do rather than guide them? Is that something that often comes up? Is that's a habit that they're trying to get out of?
There's definitely lots of habits. I love what you've said there, Elise, around intuitive channels. And it is something that I've had to remind myself of over the years, as you become more established in your coaching profession, is trusting, like you've said, just be present and trust that if there is a question to be asked, you will find that question. And yeah, it is something that comes up all of the time in supervision. Many coaches come with a worry and concern that what if I don't have the right questions to ask? And it's like, just sit intuitively in that and it will come. However, on the flip side, many people coming through with an ADHD coaching qualification or ADHD themselves or a neurodivergent themselves, and also working with neurodivergent clients of theirs as well. And sometimes to break these habits of a lifetime that clients, let's say, have mastered, it takes the coach to have a different approach and actually leaning into more doing sometimes than being. Because in the ADHD space, there is a model already exists called the directive and non-directive coaching model, but bringing it in as a permission for an ADHD coach to use, particularly in the career space as well. Sometimes coaches do need to direct, and because the neurodivergent need that, and then sit back and be in the being space as well. So it's trying to work with coaches to give them permission to adapt and be flexible and to be sitting and being when they need to be, and then to lean into more doing with an exercise or a structured question model, for example, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does, because you can think you can go in with your approach and the way you hold your space. That's how I do it. That's the only way I do it. It's a bit like a sports coach, isn't it? I will only ever play my team that way. I will never change it, even if we keep losing. Doesn't really make sense on paper because you're not basing the team around the players that you have. I think it's kind of the same thing in that space. I always felt when I did my massage therapy for 10 years, I was very successful with that. People came back to me because of the way I did it, but I was adjusting to people's bodies, but the actual safety of the space that I was in and how comfortable I made people feel and how I knew what kind of pressure to use, that was an innate skill that I knew. So I didn't need to have a process. I just needed to know where the energy was and how to treat them in that way. And I think it made me a much better therapist. So yeah, we think about that at least. Oh, I miss the days of massaging. It was the best. And it was just so organic and authentic. And I wish that could be something that really flows out of more verbal based therapy styles, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I love that so much that you said that, Owen, because Charlotte and I have had this conversation more than once. So Charlotte, and when she was going through her supervision, she was supervising me as a coach. And so one of the things that I brought to the table more than once was exactly that. Charlotte is very process driven or tools. She has a lot of tools in her toolbox. I have a ton of tools in my toolbox too, but if I start going to pulling those tools on a regular basis, I get caught up. I can't sit in the space. I can't be a channel. And so I love that you said that, because I very much show up. And my car tag on my car says show up on it, because I literally am the epitome of just showing up so that I can just be present, use my verbal skills, and trust myself that I'm going to pull on the tools that I have in my toolbox, but I don't have to worry about being proactive in that. So again, Charlotte has helped me through her supervision for me as a coach to be able to sit in the space and say, I have all these tools. I don't have to have this like repertoire that I pull up on a regular basis and go into the conversation and being able to have lead with tools. We lead with presence. We lead with the who we are and the trusting of our intuition. And like you said, being able to just put the pressure exactly where we need to put the pressure when the pressure is needed.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think as well, I'm a huge fan of being playful with tools. So, you might use a part of one And lots of training. They drill into us a certain, you must follow this model because that is a coaching tool. But actually, we're all people professionals. I mean, you're doing podcasts, and you used to do massage, and now you're doing ADHD coaching, and it all forms part of your people professional identity. Elise as well, layers and layers and layers of experience. So in the end, of course, the tools and models and the experience are going to get blurred. And it's just being comfortable enough that that you can lean in when you need to, so that you can move between being more present, being or doing. So there's definitely a way to it. Just to share a model, because I do like a model. There is a model called the 4 Stages of Coach Maturity by Megginson and Clutterbuck, 2009. And what I love about this model is that there are 4 levels, but not one level is higher than the other. And it's almost like an infinity, So it's about a coach being able to adapt and adjust fluidly, naturally in a conversation, working with someone that's neurodivergent to meet their needs. So at this time, do I feel that we need to be more doing? Should we be using a whiteboard? Should we be doing a structured exercise? Or actually, do I need to just sit and be? And I think coach maturity and supervision maturity comes from that place of being able to adapt and adjust almost seamlessly in that neurodivergent space.
Well, and I also will add to that too. I think as neurodiverse people, at least my experience has been, sometimes we get stuck in just, well, if I just hang out, if I just be, I'm still learning or I'm still unlearning. And sometimes there needs to be that activation to push and press a little bit, to challenge and say, hey, what do you need to be doing? I love that you're being in this space, but what do you really need to be doing? What is your next right step, so that you're planning forward? Because a lot of times my experience has shown that neurodiverse people can get a little stuck and paralyzed. And so having that push in that model, and be able to know when to press into that space to do something different.
I love that. And I think as well, with the coaches that I work with, it's giving them permission to do both. You are allowed to do part of an exercise, one piece of the exercise, no exercise, just lean in and ask questions, just do whatever comes naturally.
Thank you. I love that. I like this. I don't have to just, put so much energy into the questions. This is brilliant. What was quite interesting thing you said there, and I was thinking more with massage analogies as well, is that some people come to me and have all this tension in their body, all their muscles are locked. And then they talk about what they do exercise wise. Okay, this is interesting. There's not much, there's a bit of exercise there, but not too much. So not overtraining. They don't have a desk job. So that's interesting. They're kind of on their feet. That's interesting. And then they start telling me about stuff they're going through, because the people just seem to automatically do that in the space that I have. Hence probably why I've gone into coaching. I was like, what do people just keep telling me everything? And then I'm realizing they just need a safe space to allow their body just to go, So they need a very light, just very flowing, beautiful massage experience, and then you can feel it just sink away, and at the end they're like floating on a cloud, and the tension wasn't even physical. It's this fight and flight, making their muscles think there's a problem, and they're locking. Release the fight and flight, the muscles followed suit. And I think it's the same thing for coaching. Life's happening to them. They'll turn up with anything on any given day, completely random, nothing to do with anything you've ever said before. And you're then having to go, okay, this is interesting. They do just need to be heard today. And then it's like, okay, is that more therapy or coaching? And then you can get into your own head. Maybe I should pass them on. But I think you just need to know in the moment that they're showing up today with something different, something new. And you cannot prep for that, no matter how many exercises you have lined up on the desk.
No, and I'm a strong believer that some of the best coaching sessions and best supervision sessions come from a place of not knowing.
Absolutely.
You've got a goal today. No. Great. Because sometimes the best outcomes come from that place of not knowing ahead of time. And I know sometimes as neurodivergent individuals, we might need to know what is my client going to bring today? I need to know so I can prep. Well, actually you don't, because trust your intuitive channel as a coach. You'll be able to support your client with whatever their need is in that moment.
One of the things that I've started digging into pretty deeply most recently is nervous system. So to your point, Owen, about like sometimes you just need a safe space so that your nervous system can calm down a little bit and you can sit and and even know whether or not to be or to do, to be able to make that decision instead of being in fight or flight or freeze. So I really I love this conversation around being able to, in that flow, in the model of the flow, and being able to recognize where am I, and asking ourselves as coaches. I don't know if you're like this, but I coach myself all the time. And I'm constantly asking myself, am I sitting in a space of being? Do I need to be in a space of being, or do I need to be doing something so that I can move myself forward or to help the client move them forward? But again, a lot of times I feel like I'm really beginning to learn that it's the nervous system space so that they can have the freedom to just show up and just be heard and allow that silence and allow the space of silence sometimes for them to be able to be in that space.
Yeah, it's interesting. I've been doing this for years and did a whole thing on trauma for 2 years, a whole show on that as well. And we often were coming back to the place of, if you're trying to learn or to heal or to grow within yourself, trying to do that in fight and flight or dorsal vagal from polyvagal terms, if you're in dorsal, you're in sympathetic, good luck. Because doing any of those things in that state is not easy. And I always think, when people have spoken to me recently about things they're going through, I said, don't focus on the story. Don't focus on what's going on here. Focus on your state, because whatever's happening to you is affecting your state. And the best way to deal with what's happening is to help your state be parasympathetic, be ventral. So then you're in a place where you can support yourself. And I think being an inner coach, for example, over inner critic, inner coach from a parasympathetic ventral space is a very special place to be in. And if you can learn that skill and meet your experience, what would I say to me? What would my coach say to me? And you use that, it's actually quite powerful, and you let go of things way quicker. And I think that's why being in a space with a coach can help you do that. So any thoughts there, everyone?
There's just significant. Go on, Elise, go on.
I just heard something just this morning, and it had something to do with trauma. I don't even know what it was, but when I was reading through it, it said the space in which you can really heal is when you can be seen, heard, and valued. And so if we are allowing as coaches to be able to hold that space of helping them to be able to be seen, heard, and valued, and especially as neurodiverse people, oftentimes we've been dismissed, or we've been told we're stupid, or we've got all these messages and things going on in our mind that have prohibited us from being able to safely feel seen and heard in a space. So again, the thing that I love the most about coaching is being able to show up and to provide that space so that they can rest and relax and, hopefully calm their nervous system in that.
So yeah, Charlotte, what were you going to say?
Oh, it's gone. It's gone out of my head.
Okay,
but
fair enough.
I will talk about some feedback that I received recently, which was really lovely. It caught me by surprise. And the individual actually thanked me for what I didn't do rather than what I did, and that they needed flexibility and they needed space. And, I think often coaches will come and say, oh, well, I didn't, they didn't leave with a list of actions, or I didn't ask them this and I didn't ask them that. But, perception and feeling is a wonderful outcome. Awareness even is a wonderful outcome of coaching. And it was really lovely feedback. It just reassured me that actually it's reminded myself what I remind coaches all the time, is that it's okay not to have this big aha moment in every coaching session that you have. And actually, over the time that I'd spent with this individual, the silence and the things that I didn't kind of do or push towards was the right outcome for that person. So it's interesting.
There's a lot of things that can happen in silence. A lot of things that can happen just with providing an open space.
Yeah.
I love that. I'm just getting all flashbacks now from my Eckhart Tolle training, because that's exactly what he talks about. So much power comes in that quiet present space, when the truth is there. And I think, the stories of our lives and what we think about ourselves and the beliefs that we have, so much of it is cognitive, and we're trying to make cognitive with cognitive. So we're just getting stuck in loops, when if we just step back from the story and just look in this moment, how does my body feel? Where in my body is there tension? Or what my thoughts actually, watch the thoughts flying through. So using mindfulness just to see the thoughts there. It's like a cloud, if people like analogies, is really powerful too, to step back. The story's still important and your beliefs are still important, but the beliefs might not be yours. They might be somebody else's. And then you're having to unpack that, but trying to do that 100% cognitively the whole time. The belief comes in, what is your body doing? Maybe we can help get your body to help your mind realize that that thought is actually having a physical impact on you, maybe we can reverse that.
Yeah.
We're getting really somatic about it, which is really, really powerful. So to wrap up, because we're nearly there, generally presence work, mindfulness. I've heard a lot of people in the community quite rightly saying meditation, absolutely not. They cannot do that. And we say, well, it doesn't have to be just sitting there on a cushion. It can be movement out in the park. It can be listening to the sounds around you. It can be all kinds of stuff. What are your thoughts on how mindfulness and presence work could actually be integrated into our lives? And Charlotte, how important would that be for coaches to be able to practice presence outside of the coaching space so they already turn up much more grounded?
Well, I already know that Lisa's got lots to say on this topic because she's much more mastered at this than I am. I actually get a lot of my Zen from the group supervision that I do. And I just love it, and I really leave feeling like I've had a massage. I just find it's the most enjoyable thing that I can do. But I do have crystals, which I hold just to remind myself, that I'm here, and just to kind of calm my thoughts. And I don't meditate. I have in the past, but I find it quite challenging. But what I do love is when I meet somebody that does talk about this, the senses and all of that kind of stuff. And what I love is working with people that bring that into the group supervision space as well. We had a lovely experience recently where I think unknowingly I do this, and I noticed I've done it a few times, but somebody in the group noticed it too, and just brought quite organically a moment of all of us to breathe through our backs instead of our hearts, and taught us this brilliant exercise. Now you're going to give it a terminology or a label that I'm not sure of, but it was just brilliant just to sit there. So I'm a complete awe of it. And when it's available, I will take it, but I don't do it proactively, and I perhaps should.
Yes, it's very, very powerful. So, Elise, I'm aware of the time, so I'm going to not talk too much now for the rest of the show. So, Elise, what are your thoughts on this? It sounds like you're about to say something very exciting from what Charlotte said.
I started meditating a little over a year ago. I do it 10 minutes. However, if I'm not feeling like sitting still, I'll get up and walk. So I'll move my body, and movement to me can be meditation, being out in nature, being around, just walking around the block, looking at the flowers. I stop at every flower and I take a picture. I've got thousands of them, but that to me is my meditation. And so I think that we have, sometimes we can think about meditation or mindfulness being a certain way or looking like it is it's in a box in some capacity. But at the end of the day, it really is just, what do you need to do to silence your mind? Sometimes I'll just shake. I'll do some somatic shaking. And that to me is meditation. It doesn't matter what it is. It's just what's going to help me to feel grounded, put my feet on the ground, barefooted sometimes. What's going to help me to bring myself back to center? To me, that's meditation.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's interesting how important it is for us to remember how powerful our body is for helping us out when it comes to our ruminating mind and just the fast-paced thought processes. With my partner, when she ruminates a lot and goes in thought loops. But if I use pressure work, obviously the massage helps, but pressure, sort of slight squeezing of the arms, she yawns. I can feel her energy just come back. This being sort of being sucked into the vortex of thought, and just that pressure work alone is so powerful. And I find grounding techniques, like put my feet on the ground outside and being surrounded by amazing trees and beautiful views and the sea, but seeing how that feels on my body, I start to yawn. I start to feel kind of sleepy, but in a good way. And my thoughts kind of I'm not even trying to not do anything with them. They just sort of drift away. Don't forget the power of environment and our own bodies. We don't have to do all the breathing techniques and all that if we don't want to.
I think you've reminded me, actually, just sorry to jump in there, but I think you've reminded me we're talking about things that we've learned and unlearned. And actually, I've probably got many leaves in my pockets where I've walked along and picked a leaf and put it in my pocket. And I've probably just done it for so long now, subconsciously, that there actually are those times, aren't there, where I love listening to the birds and things like, oh, yeah, I like listening to the birds. Today before our call, I went outside and looked up at the sun. So you forget, don't you, actually, what are the things that you do that are micro. You don't have to be able to sit 10 or 20 minutes a day. And I think that's where it is sometimes meditation, or the label itself has put a pressure on me, like, oh, I'm rubbish at meditating because I don't go and sit down, and sit down for 10 minutes deliberately. There are other small things that you can do.
And one of the things that I say all the time, I say it to myself, I say it to my children, I say it to my clients, we're adults, we can do what we want. We don't have to always continue to live in these boxes. We can unlearn these behaviors and make them our own. And that's what ownership of ourselves really is. And if we want to say that meditation is looking at a candle in the flame, then that's meditation to us. There's no reason for us to continue to put more labels when we've been labeled for a long time, a lot of years.
Yeah. So true. And I think there's always another way, quite often with this kind of work. So if you can't access your body in this moment, or you can't walk your thoughts, use a sort of sensory input from something else. So if I listen to a thunderstorm, light thunderstorm with some light rain, and it's pitch black and I can't get to sleep because I'm ruminating, I put that on and my mind goes, oh, that's nice. And I sort of just forget briefly about the thoughts and I drift off to sleep. Though I couldn't sleep for an hour. So even use auditory aids. There's so many options, as long as it's about being present and bringing your awareness and your attention to something in this moment, which isn't attention to thoughts. It's pretty simple in that way, but it's not as simple as it sounds. It kind of is.
I bet money. I bet that we, like Charlotte said, there are, as a matter of fact, when you were saying that, I was like, well, I actually do this and I do that and I do this. So there's lots of things that we probably do if we just sit still and thought about what are the things that bring us back to our center and calm us down, get our thoughts out of our way.
Well, I certainly feel more centered from sitting here chatting to you guys for the last hour. That's for sure.
Likewise.
Yeah, I forget about my life when I'm doing this. So I think, I just shine and I love it so much. So in a way, this is meditative to me. I love the topic, so it's just so wonderful. Right, we need to wrap up. Sadly, I could speak to you guys all day, like everybody I have on the show. It's been absolutely wonderful. Many people have come back on, and we've just picked one topic and dived in for longer. So I will keep you in my roll call to reach out to. But there's one message that we always do at the end of the show. So this is your parting message of joy, of hope. So for all the neurodivergent people listening, what would be your beautiful message that we're going to be fine, we're amazing, any words that come to mind? It's just a lovely positive finish. So start with you, Charlotte. What would be your parting message of joy to the ND community?
Many of our strengths are a balance to others' weaknesses. And I don't want that to be a compare and despair a comparison, but we bring many strengths that many individuals don't have, and I think in a workspace, it's really important that our teams bring all sorts of skills and strengths to the whole dynamic so that we can just get stuff done, So I think it's, don't worry about the things that you find challenging, because others will have energy from those things because they're their strengths. So focus on the things that give you energy and focus less on the things that don't give you energy, because as the world goes around, there's lots of people to pick up everything that needs to happen.
I love that. You said it earlier on. I love the term leaning in.
Lean into the strengths, the things that give you energy. Yeah.
Kind of where you thrive and kind of what happens kind of effortlessly. I think we all have one or two things that just happen effortlessly. It's very interesting. Can we lean into that? And how can we, and some people are like, how can I monetize my effortless skill? Which is pretty exciting as an entrepreneur. So Elise, what would be your parting message of joy?
My parting message would be to own your magic. Own your magic. And if you don't feel magical, go find your magic.
Yeah.
I love that. Oh, I always like to end on a high note. So thank you so much. I think there's so much in here from clients to coaches to leaders. It's amazing. You covered the whole thing, which is great. But Charlotte, where are you most active? What social media platform can people check out what you're up to?
LinkedIn is where I hang out because my clients hang out there too.
Amazing. Everything's going to be in the show notes, but it's good to just know where people can go. And Elise, is it the same for you? Are you anywhere else as well?
The same for me. Now, I have inspirational stuff on my personal Instagram page, but primarily LinkedIn.
Amazing. I encourage people to go over there because a lot of my following is TikTok and Instagram, but there is some amazing things happening over there for neurodivergent people over in the LinkedIn space, from clients to coaches. I love it over there. It's incredible. It's so supportive as well, which is wonderful. But thank you so much, Charlotte and Elise, for being on the show. It's really lovely to hold this sort of group space like this. That feels really good. Just sparks of inspiration everywhere. So yeah, thank you, Charlotte, for being on the show.
Pleasure.
And thank you, Elise.
Thank you so much. This has been such a joy.
Yes, it certainly has. I can't wait to have you back on together individually. Maybe get Esther on as well, Charlotte. We could do one with us three as well. That would be really special. Because if I put coaching in the title of any podcast, they're the biggest downloads. So people want to know how coaching can help them, and coaches want to know how best to do their work. So incredible. Thank you for listening, and we will see you next time.